welcome to the Sellout Show, the show where I've temporarily ceased to talk about weird shit that no one but me likes, and instead talk about extremely well-respected genre classics like Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know, I've arguably abandoned the premise of my show 5 episodes in. Ben, why aren't you talking about Melancholy to Engel? Ben, why aren't you talking about Black Mass of the Nazi Sex Wizard? Ben, why aren't you talking about Wedding Trough, aka the pig fucking movie? Ben, why aren't you talking about fucking Ant Farm Dickhole, the film that probably doesn't even exist?
Army ants from South America are moving up north.
It's so racist, dude.
You sick fuck! You have ants in your pee-pee?
If he went to the hospital, then he wouldn't have to worry about the ant cocky in his pee-pee.
The reason I'm happy to talk about as mainstream a film as The Texas Chainsaw Massacre on this show is because, in my opinion, it is unambiguously the greatest horror film ever made. In my mind, nothing made before or since really comes close as far as a pure, distilled horror experience. I don't need to do much of a plot synopsis for this one, because complicated plotting is one of the many extraneous things this extremely raw film wisely avoids. Basically, there's a group of hippies led by Sally who travel to Texas amid a spate of grave robberies to see if Sally's grandfather's grave has been defaced. On the way back from this trip, they make a stop at her grandfather's old home, and it all goes very, very pear-shaped from there. The tone of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, especially in the second half, is that it really feels like a nightmare. Its tone is so distinct and so different to all the myriad slasher films that would follow in its wake. It honestly feels closer to something like a horror film version of Harmony Korine's Gummo. To me, the thing that really sets the tone of the movie is the first kill, when Kurt cops a fucking mallet to the head. Honestly, this movie should be called the Texas Mallet Massacre because there's actually more mallet kills than there are chainsaw kills. It's my favourite non-comedic kill in a movie. It's just so unstylized and perfunctory. It feels like it's from a completely different genre to later stuff like Friday the 13th. Even the way Leatherface slams the door at the end has this awful finality to it. It's chilling in a way that a lot of mainstream Hollywood jump scares can't quite manage.
Is anybody home? Hello? Hey, Pam. Hello?
The last 40 minutes or so of the film, starting when it becomes fully nighttime, is some of the most intense filmmaking I've had the pleasure of experiencing. The constant screaming and motion and banging reminds me of a Gaspar Noé film, but several decades earlier and much more primal. The dinner scene in particular is almost headache-inducing. The sound is one of the most distinctive things about the film. For me, it's right up there with David Lynch and Alan Splett's work on Eraserhead. The film is very rarely silent. There is constant droning and scraping and clattering. The whole film is just a cacophony of noise, and there's no conventional score whatsoever. This makes it feel less like a movie, and more like the viewer has actually been dropped into the bowels of hell.
Oil storage units continue to burn out of control at the huge Texaco refinery near the Texas-Louisiana border. 3 storage units exploded into flames during the night, killing at least 3 workers and injuring a dozen more. Firefighting units from 3 Texas cities continue to battle.
Unfortunately, due to its title, I think people who aren't into horror films are liable to lump the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in with modern garbage like Saw, or dated naff like A Nightmare on Elm Street, when to me it's worlds apart from either of those two things. Actually, some of the other films in the franchise are worth seeing, but to me, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original film, is an island unto itself in terms of tone and quality. Any modern horror film that is meant to be serious and gritty and realistic and not overtly supernatural can be traced back to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. American torture porn, New French Extremity, you name it, Tobe Hooper already did it in 1974. There were certainly bloody exploitation horror films released before the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, many of which were made by gore pioneer Herschel Gordon Lewis, but what Tobe Hooper did was he stripped out all the camp elements and released a film that was just pure horror sensation, essentially. No frills, no bullshit. I don't even really need to end this video with a recommendation, because anyone watching this has probably already seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but there's Psycho, Alien, Halloween, The Exorcist, all terrific movies, but to me, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the Citizen Kane of horror films. I think it is the best horror film ever made, and to this day, it remains unbeaten. I was actually going to talk about Ryan Trecarton's A Family Finds Entertainment, but in the month since I've seen it, I still haven't figured out what words I would use to describe it, and I also haven't figured out whether I actually like it or despise it, so I canned that idea. This clip of the film should suffice.